I don't believe anything the government tells me. Nothing.
Welcome to Bendy SpaceTime's Open Mic Hour. I'm your host, Bendy SpaceTime. Whew, I almost didn't make it here because of an accident. I was still and motionless when out of nowhere a fire hydrant slammed into my vehicle going 40 miles per hour. Fortunately for me, my insurance has a frame of reference rider. GeoLove's done an amazing job setting up the Earth Awakening's Discord server. A lot of people don't know that Geo is extremely knowledgeable about the treatment of mental illness using psychedelic, mind-altering plant medicine. This skill could come in handy when dealing with a community of people who are addicted to debating the shape of the Earth. Questionable mental health and flat Earth debate go together like general relativity and bendy spacetime. Geo's done so many psychedelics that the ghost of Hunter S. Thompson blushes whenever he hears Geo and Grimm talk about drugs. So if you're interested in performing, listening live, and or participating, join Geo's Earth Awakening's Discord server. The link can be found in the description below. I wanted to go ahead and start with a poem here about one of my favorite topics, the moon landing. And so this poem is called Sheeple Believe. Neil Armstrong was a total liar. Low Earth orbit, he never went higher. Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, too. They're full of BS. They never went to the moon. Watch them squirm under the scrutiny. Press conference after their victory. A detective you would not have to be. The shame and deception is easy to see. Calculus I never learned. A science degree I never earned. But arithmetic I can do well. And simple math is enough to tell. Astronauts in lunar gravity ought to jump high rather casually. But one thing we never do see, Armstrong and Aldrin leaping up 3 feet in the air, a simple feat for conditioned athletes so elite. But they're wearing heavy suits, you say, 185 pounds they weigh, a tiresome load to hold them down, keep them from leaping high off the ground. As positive as the earth is round, the burden they carried quite profound. If you add up the weight, both gear and man, 360 pounds the plan. On Earth, impossibly encumbered. On the moon, take 1/6 that number. 60 pounds the amount they would weigh, roving the lunar surface that day. This obvious assertion to make, an 18-inch jump, looks rather fake. These two simple, anomalous facts, just 2 of dozens, easy to attack. But don't expect NASA to retract their claim that Armstrong left lunar tracks. For if they did, everyone would see the so-called hoax and conspiracy, not paranoid bouts of lunacy, reality, fact, and actually only one time of many. Lies, lies, mindfuck the masses, so unwise, dumbed down through fluoride and MTV, television says, and sheeple believe. So let me just go ahead and check with Mr. Fundamental. I believe he had something he was going to read. Are you ready to go, Fundy?
All right, here we go. First off, this place is a mixture. No thing is a permanent fixture. Listen up, brothers and sisters. My rhyme's gonna paint you a picture. Ain't nothing new under the sun. The point of life is to have love and fun. So sing and dance and have romance or bromance. Whatever you fans see, that's what it's gonna be. Because you shape reality to a degree. And you know me, I enjoy getting buzzed like a bee and smoking that tree. Do your thing, whatever it be. Just remember, balance is key. So learn what peace is, before you end up in pieces. Let go of the hate. It drags you down like a lead weight. You're free to shape your own fate. But it's also written in the stars. You're meant to be right where you are. Heaven and hell aren't so far. Inside of all of us is where they spar. But this isn't a fight, not a war between wrong and right, or black and white, or day and night, or loose and tight, or dark and bright. This is the union of opposites. That means everything is moderate. The world's a conglomerate.
That was dope. The world is a conglomerate, literally. You have a title that you've thrown on that, or have you thought about it that
Uh,
much?
it's titled My First Poem.
My first poem, right on. This is just a story. I don't know what I even call this story. I guess I call this story maybe my inner shaman appears, something like that. Sometimes cats require rescue. I've wrangled them from rooftops, trees, and power lines. I've removed them from inside walls, pipes, garages, engine compartments, attics, and from under mobile homes. I've netted cats that were abandoned inside apartments, ones that were hoarded, even ones that were evicted. I also trap cats. Not cuddly friendly ones, but shy or aggressive feral ones who have not been socialized. Typically, I do it with a humane live animal trap. They are spayed or neutered. The tip of one of their ears is removed to signify that they have been sterilized, and then they are returned, otherwise unharmed. I've done this trap neuter return in parks, parking lots, strip malls, warehouses, schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, hotel casinos, backyards, front yards, horse properties, and even a bird sanctuary. When these community cats get sick or injured, I trap them and do the best by them that I can. Mostly that means taking them to a vet to receive euthanasia or the good death. Not many people have the means or the willingness to foot expensive vet bills for unadoptable animals. Though I do these things to help the felines, in the end, it's more about helping the people who help the animals. My friend Bobby is one of these people. For 25 years, she's been rescuing and trapping, aiding people and their animals wherever she can. This was the scenario. A small black cat got hit by a car. Rear leg broken, the poor creature was still mobile enough to evade Bobby. For 3 days, she had tried to net or trap it with no luck. Being already sterilized, it knew better than to enter the trap. On the fourth night, Bobby called me, excited. Blackie had crawled into a piece of pipe, and Bobby had been able to block both ends. Now we only needed to position the trap at one and put something into the other to force the cat out. I had just the thing, a fish tape for running cables through ceilings and walls. When I arrived, Bobby introduced me to Debbie, Blackie's caretaker, who provided the cat with food and water. I surveyed the scene. A former car dealership, the site was a huge parking lot. The pipe turned out to be a light pole. There were dozens of them that were being salvaged from the property. On the far right side of the lot sat a trailer where a security guard stayed on site. A huge four-wheel drive pickup truck was parked in front. "So, hey Bobby," I said, "is that security guard cool with us being here?" "Well, about that," she was interrupted by a boom that echoed across the parking lot, the trailer door closing. A second boom followed, the door to the guard's monstrous 4x4 truck slamming shut. The truck's engine roared to life and bright lights illuminated a huge area in front of the vehicle. Immediately, I began walking away from Bobby and Debbie towards the trailer. The guard punched it, and the truck roared in my direction. I put my hands up in the air, making them clearly visible. I was sure he was armed, and I'm sure he was really pissed. His hostility was palpable, like a spike in the humidity before a thunderstorm. Being empathetic, I tend to mirror the energy that people put out to me. Approach me with calm and respect, I'll give you back more of the same. Act anxious and unsure, and I'll chew my nails right along with you. Come at me hard, and I get angry. My temper has gotten me into trouble more than once. So normally, this guard, being so agitated, would have had me agitated. I would have been spoiling for a fight, ready to throw down, ready to scream and shout. But what could I do when the question was fight or flight, and neither answer was appropriate? There was no way I could butt heads with this guy. He had all the power. He could demand we leave and call the police if we refused. And I certainly did not want to simply abandon the cat. We had a good plan. My inner shaman made a timely appearance and whispered into my ear, "Contrition. It's the only card you can play." Using my left hand to block some of the blinding light, I began a steady mantra. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." The truck screeched to a halt, illuminating me like the proverbial deer. The guard shouted, "I told those bitches they can't be here. Get out of here before I call the cops." "I'm sorry," I replied. "I know we're trespassing, but we're trying to capture that cat with the broken leg." He yelled back, "They've been trying for days to get that cat. They ain't going to be able to get that cat. You ain't going to be able to get that cat. Now get out of here." I said, "Please, sir, I know they've been unsuccessful, but now the cat, it's in a place where I know I can get it. Please, sir, just let me try." His tone remained just as loud, just as angry, and just as dismissive, but the content of what he had said shifted in my favor. "Do what it is you have to do, then get the fuck out of here." "Thank you," I blurted. I turned and ran back towards Bobby and the cat. The truck drove back to the trailer. Bobby looked at me sheepishly. "Yeah, I was going to tell you that fellow wasn't too happy about us being here." We got the cat out of the light pole, and like the one-off that was the appearance of my inner shaman, someone stepped forward to pay for Blackie to receive an amputation surgery, provided her with a home to get her off the streets. And now whenever someone comes at me aggressively with anger, I know that I have it inside of me, that I don't have to give in to the dark side. I know that I have the power to turn the other cheek and meet anger with love. And so, I was looking down there to see if Kosho was around. So I have something in common with Kosho. I too have driven for Lyft. And I like to say it's the one occupation where cab drivers will lecture you about your poor life choices. Bro, get a job with health insurance, bro. Driving for Lyft, I did learn some things. I learned that even though bartenders and strippers both work for tips, bartenders would always tip me, while strippers would always leave me with a stiffy. I mean, they would always stiff me. It even says in the Bible, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is to get a tip from a stripper. Vegas is known for its strip clubs. Gentlemen's clubs, they're called. Conjures up images of geezers in top hats and bow ties sipping tea, not guys in pool shorts doing jello shots and triggering the fraud alerts on their credit cards. I also gave lots of rides to hookers. People ask me, how can you tell that they're prostitutes? I grew up in Nevada, the only state in the union that has legalized prostitution. The hooker is like our state animal, and I have lots of experience observing them in their natural habitat. From these observations, which you Globers call natural science, I've formulated this simple and easy to remember premise. Hookers are like breast implants. If you start to ask yourself, I wonder if, the answer is yes. Those tits are fake, and yes, that girl's a prostitute. So please like, share, and subscribe so that we can build our audience as well as our performer base. You can find me at Bendy SpaceTime on YouTube, Odyssey, and Twitter. So I thought I would do another quick story. This one is actually more in the to go along with sort of the Halloween theme. This is the two spookiest things that have ever happened to me in my life. The two spookiest things. So this first one is called the Necroscibe. My friend Adam is a ghostbuster. He senses negative entities that inhabit homes or businesses, and he casts them out with Reiki intention magic. Once, he channeled the spirit of a young girl that had died after falling out of the second-story window while her grandma sat on the nearby rocking chair. Acting as a necroscribe, he wrote a poem from her point of view, which makes me shiver every time I hear it. Another time, I accompanied him to take video while he inspected a home where the occupants complained of bad mojo. He led us around the house and he talked about the various impressions he was receiving. We lingered in the bedroom and the garage. Then he profiled the ghost for us. Angry, confused, and resentful. I didn't perceive a thing, and I thought the necroscribe was out of his gourd. The homeowner had baked cupcakes. I took 2. When I got to my car, I raised one to my mouth to lick the frosting. It felt as like someone pushed my hand and the cupcake smooshed into my nose. In my mind, I heard the Simpsons character Nelson Muntz laugh, ha ha. So that was the most freakiest thing, like supernaturally, that I could think of that had happened to me up until that point. And then this happened, and I call this story the Maori. Dane is a shaman. As a child, he studied the history and practices of the Maori people. For 10 years, he blessed roads, schools, and hospitals to rid them of negative energy. Some of that bad mojo stuck to him. When we met, he was a broke musician and a drunk. One day, he unexpectedly announced his return to energy work. I'm to deliver the whale rider to the headwaters of the Mississippi. You will be my point man. His plan? Order a sacred stone from New Zealand, bless it, and then carve it into a charm of the mythic whale rider. We would then drop that charm into Lake Ithaca, where its healing energies would purify the waters downstream. I replied to Dane, if you pick up the beer cans outside of your trailer, I'll believe you're serious about this plan. Dane made good. He quit drinking, and the Sunday hikes I led him on got him into shape. The stone arrived. We held a ceremony in the Calico Hills. Dane closed his eyes and chanted in his native tongue. I can trace the bloodlines back to the whale rider. Choked with emotion, he cried, my blood will purify the stone. Slowly, at first, and then with greater intensity, blood dripped from his nose over the rock. Apart from the cupcake being smushed into my face, it was the freakiest moment of my life. I showed the video to the ghost-busting Necroscibe, and he dismissed the significance with an instant normie's ad hoc explanation. So again, that too is a true story. My friend, who is a ghost-busting Reiki master, is skeptical about anybody else that makes claims about the supernaturally kind of stuff.
I love it. I think it's good to be skeptical, no matter what.
That poem he wrote, I need to actually get him to come on here and perform it, because it's amazing. Like, because he totally captures the emotion of what happened to this kid, and it's tragic. But it's like it's such a weird thing. When he told me that word, he's like necroscribe. It's like necroscribe. What does that mean? He's like, well, it's how the dead can get released, right? Because they're stuck here for some reason, and sometimes even just telling the story is enough to get them unstuck.
Yeah, that's frightening, especially for a child.
Not to be confused with a ghost rider.
Yes, very droll, very droll. 10th man approves of that joke. All right. Had at least a couple of more poems on the lineup here, and I might as well do this one. I call this Matricide. I've traveled across the country to witness this. My once vibrant mother laid silent by a stroke. The burst vessel in her brain has inflicted a mortal wound. If not for the rhythmic in and out cadence of the ventilator, she would be dead. My brother refuses to enter the hospital room, and I respect that. He has his own happier memories of her from before, when she was whole. Why ruin those for a glimpse of this mute, dying creature? Tomorrow, her sisters will make the trip from Hawaii. Tomorrow, we will say goodbye and remove the ventilator, and she will meet death. I make a special note in my calendar for tomorrow. It's not every day you get to kill your mother. Yes, that's one of my more uplifting pieces that I like to do. Kind of people make people feel good. This poem is the Well, why do we call conspiracy theorists, right? That's the question. How did that word ever become so loaded? And so this poem deals with that topic. It's called Countering Criticism of the Warren Report. The CIA has you clicker trained. 2 simple words and off goes your brain. I see that it is. You do not believe me. You think what you want. Your mind is free. So what happens when I say these words? Do you still think or go with the herds of sheeple whose common sense flees when they hear the term conspiracy theory? 2 simple words which cause such shame and make it easy to shift the blame away from those who commit the crimes. A strategy that works every time. No good American wants to be called a tinfoil hat wearing loony. Instead of thinking critically, show them proof and they still will not see. A lifetime ago, back in the day, the treacherous bastards killed JFK. Their lies and cover up were really quite deft, but his head still goes back and to the left. Few believe the Warren Commission. The spooks came up with a brand new mission. Convince the public, don't trust your eyes. Trust what we say, do not mind the lies. They then created this infamous memo, talking points that the media sows, skeptics able to follow the plan, dismiss critique with a wave of the hand. Your information is old and defunct, just tired claims that have been debunked. A secret that big, there's just no way. If it were the truth, someone would say. We watch the Twin Towers turn into dust, yet still in the media we find trust. Modern steel structures never fall down. 3 in 1 day, we've been so clown. Why is it that so many believe they know that the government often deceives, but no normal person wants to be seen as a promoter of conspiracies?
I love it.
Then
Yeah, you're one of those conspiracy theorist people, aren't you?
it's weird. It seems to be a recurring topic in my poetry is criticisms of authority. I don't know where that comes from. So this I sort of was writing to be like a stand-up bit, but I never really tried to make it work as a stand-up bit. So it's actually just more of a just kind of a, let's call it an essay. We'll call it an essay. And this is titled Funny Money. Who's ever heard about the Navy's $400 hammer? Now, today, with our shrunken up little debased currency, a $400 hammer is not outrageous at all. But back in 1984, if a hammer cost $400, you'd better be getting a blowjob to go along with your tool. This contractor was charging the Navy $10,168.56 for this repair kit that had 21 tools and parts in it. A congressman went to a couple of hardware stores and bought the identical stuff. Guess how much the total cost was? $92.44. That's right, the Pentagon was paying $10,000 for $100 worth of tools. So when this information came out in the New York Times, Americans were pissed. They marched on Capitol Hill with pitchforks and flaming torches, and they demanded that the Secretary of Navy resign. Nah, I'm just kidding. 2 years later, Tom Cruise starred in Top Gun, and everybody forgot all about that shit. But the $400 hammer did come up again in presidential debates that year. So the president had to do something. My fellow Americans, many of you have heard about this $400 hammer that didn't come with the blowjob, so it's my duty to sign an executive order forming a blue ribbon commission to find out how we could be paying $400 and not getting a Hummer with our hammer. Thus, the Packard Commission was born. They investigated, held hearings, and interviewed witnesses. After 6 months, they wrote a scathing report saying, obviously, if contractors were marking up items and selling them at an 11,000% profit, that the military was being built by greedy and corrupt contractors, and that these contractors should be held liable, fined, and go to prison. Nah, I'm just kidding. They determined that there was no fraud and abuse, just an overly complicated procurement system with too many rules that were too rigidly enforced. So the solution was obvious. Create some more rules to fix the problem and give the Pentagon 2 years' worth of appropriations instead of 1. Fast forward to 1991, and some jerk-off reporter had been exposing that the Pentagon had this thing called the black budget. And they don't call it black because it can dance and play basketball or because it's always been getting harassed by the police. They call it the black budget because it's hidden from everyone, including Congress. There had always been shit they wanted to keep secret, but under Reagan, the black budget tripled. The amount spent on secret weapons had grown by tenfold, and the black budget was now more than the government spent on education, transportation, and the environment combined. Another way to look at it, it was equal to the amount the federal government spent on healthcare. So if you ever wonder why in Japan they have bullet trains, and in America we only have bullets, you can thank the black budget. The Pentagon is like having a girlfriend who maxes out your credit cards on things she takes with her when you break up. You get all the debt, but none of the benefits. So again, Americans were pissed. If your government is spending more on secret military programs than they are on education and transportation, the taxpayers are getting screwed. A bunch of them started a campaign, and they refused to pay taxes until Congress reformed the military. Nah, I'm just kidding again. The next year, The Real World came out on MTV, and everybody forgot all about that shit again. But Congress did do something. They demanded, you have to be able to tell us how much money you actually spend and what you've spent this money on every year. There will be audits. And the Pentagon was like, it's complicated. I mean, we have so many different accounting systems. Getting them to talk to each other, it's complicated. Fast forward to September 10th, 2001. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld held a press conference to make a rather startling announcement. The Pentagon couldn't account for $2.3 trillion. I know what you're thinking. Wow, that's a lot of change to lose in the couch. Yeah, this time people were really pissed. I mean, 2.3 trillion was almost half of the entire national debt. How the hell could the Pentagon lose $2.3 trillion? Taxpayers gathered up torches and pitchforks and were marching towards the District of Criminals when a funny thing happened. And not funny like Dave Chappelle on Netflix, but funny like, what in the flying fuck? The next day, terrorists crashed United Airlines Flight 77 into the Pentagon, killing the investigators that were searching for the lost money and destroying their computers. So the people put down their torches and pitchforks and bought magnetic American flags to put on their vehicles so they could fulfill their patriotic duty and support the war on terror by buying more stuff. And actually, that is true. That is what happened.
Yeah, that's poignant.
So I wrote this poem about my dysfunctional relationship I have with government, and I call this national security. Baby, I wish that I could make you see. You should not be angry with me. I admit, I was out all night. But baby, that's no reason to fight. Yeah, you don't know where I've been, but I assure you, it was not to sin. Yes, I know all our money is gone, but I spent it for right and not for wrong. I know that I tell you lie after lie, and you never hear the actual why. But please, baby, you have to believe the things that I do, they keep us free. You hate the lack of transparency, but it's all for national security.
Good one.
All right, so I've got one more trite rhyming poem. This is titled "A Policeman Killed My Dog Today." But in reality, no dogs or policemen were harmed in this making of this poem. Just disclaimer. A policeman killed my dog today. He was a good pooch, that's what I say. Barking at strangers, alerting me, threats to my home that I cannot see. But today he was there, by himself, all alone, doing his job, protecting my home. When in burst the cops, mistakenly, thinking that my house contained a thief. Pepe barked loud and let them know, his teeth fearsome and not just for show. SWAT took one look and the decision was made. Just for barking, Pepe's life he paid. I cleaned my best friend's blood off the floor. A stubborn stain took an hour or more. The cops admitted their liability. A settlement amount? I guess we'll see. The good thing about it, Granny wasn't home. When she gets mad, her mouth sure does foam. Rabid she appears when she gets mad. Granny put down, that would have been sad. With Granny, their restraint might have been greater. Granny might have only gotten the taser. But like with Pepe, the threat is real. The fear palpable that these cops feel. Every citizen is a ninja warrior. Unarmed assassins, deadly death couriers. But I say that if they have to be so afraid, then they should find a different way to get paid. Oh, Pepe, my dog, he was one of a kind. I can't get him out of my mind. His death weighs heavy, makes me feel sad. He was the best chihuahua I ever had.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that one comes from the heart because police in America do tend to shoot dogs, and I don't see any reason for it. In fact, here that leads me to a story that I hadn't prepared, but I have time, so I might as well tell it. I used to walk my friend Joni's dogs, and she had a little small dog, and then one that was larger, Bumper. And so I used to walk her dogs in her neighborhood, and every day, every time, I would round this corner, and there was this yard that had 3 German Shepherds in it, and they were always back behind their fence in their backyard, and they would always bark at us. And one day, I rounded that corner, wearing what I normally wear, which is like shorts and flip-flops. And I rounded that corner, and instead of being behind the fence, those 3 dogs were standing out in the middle of the front yard. And immediately they saw us, and they started making a beeline right towards us. So I reached down and I picked up the smaller dog, and then I just started walking towards them and using my, saying it from my chest, just told them, hey, you better back off, get away. And they backed off. And so that's why I have very little sympathy when, police are wearing boots and uniform pants and all this stuff. And then they end up shooting dogs, basically for no reason. Because it's like, what are you afraid of? You can't use your body language to, intimidate a dog. Come on. So a little impromptu story there. All right, then I got one more. We're talking about animals. I'll just do one more. This is another lighthearted poem that I've come up with. That's called "The Good Death." Every day we kill 80 animals. It sounds cruel, but mostly it's just simple math. 200 to the shelter today. Some will be claimed by grateful owners. Others will be adopted. Still others will go to their homes or other rescue groups. But 80 will have to die to satisfy the equation. We operate at a fast pace, straining every day to finish our business at a time. Mistakes occur, they all do, and life is occasionally sacrificed. No time to fret, work must continue, life goes on. The bodies, tiny, small, even large, pile up in containers suspiciously like cans to me. So, like I said, more uplifting stuff. Actually, maybe I have to find one more funny thing to do. Can't end like that. The longer stay, the requisite dermal having thickened over the years from the probing, when people prick, poke, and say, "What label put on him?" My father is black and my mother is Hawaiian. The response's simplicity belies the true complexity of my family's history. Through a brief summary, I will try to help you see the blend of genes that make up me. Grandma on my mother's side was pure Hawaiian, full of pride. Grandpa crossed the ocean wide, Scottish and Apache inside. The mix of DNA with glee has led to the absurdity. Tourists in Mexico thinking me to have Spanish-speaking ability. Lo siento, no habla español. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Me pompen con kunteb. My mother is from Bangkok. The lie in Thai comes easily. Never questioned, always believed. For with their own eyes they can see that I have Asian ancestry. No one ever asked the same of my brother. Why? The answer is plain for all to see. He looks fairly black, unlike me. Tight curly hair that forms the B, and looks most unmistakably like he can play basketball. And he can. So now I say, ask away. Feel free to probe and let me say, I care not on me which moniker you'd like to place, based on the color and shape of my face. All right. Well, I'll do one more short one, and then we'll just start the after show type thing. And if anybody's got anything they want to share, they can do it then. But this Fundy would be familiar with the person that inspired me to write this. Like I actually kind of just stole his talking points and put them into my own poem here. So I call this Unwilling Suspension of Disbelief. If this reality were a serious place, a world of gravitas and consequence, we would not believe that jocks would honor a man with his penis taped to the back of his leg with a Courage Award. If human life were truly sacred, revered, cherished, and honored, we would not believe that killing an unborn baby has less consequence than discarding an empty Starbucks cup. If there was truth to be found in this view from the legions of talking heads on TV, we would not believe that a little girl could kick Bruce Lee's ass inside of his own dojo. A more likely outcome than a passenger airline successfully attacking the Pentagon.
Is that QOC?
QOC. Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly. I stole the dojo, the little beating Bruce Lee in his own dojo.
Yes.
From that. So, oh yeah, okay. Bendy SpaceTime's open mic hours. Always looking for performers. Contact me on Discord or Twitter, or be in Earth Awakenings live stream one stage Fridays at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard and 8 p.m. UTC. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe.